September 6. 972. John XIII, Pope, died. He was elected by the power of the emperor, against the wishes of the Roman people. A violent dissension was the consequence, and the new pontiff was banished the next year by the prefect of Rome. He was reinstated by the emperor, and his opponent in turn sent into exile. 1492. Columbus sailed from the Canaries, where he had been detained since the 12th of August, in refitting for the voyage. 1521. John Sebastian del Cano, having on the death of Magellan, been appointed captain of the Spanish expedition for the discovery of a western passage to the Molucca or Spice Islands, conducted the remainder of the voyage, which was finished this day. This was the first voyage round the world. It sailed August 10, 1519, from Seville, and consisted of 5 ships and 236 men. Only one ship of this squadron ever reached Spain. 8th. 1578. Drake, having passed the Straits of Magellan, entered the Pacific Ocean, on his memorable campaign against the Spanish treasure ships. 1581. William Postel, a French mathematician, died. He possessed great learning, but was a visionary. His works are 26 in number, on curious and strange subjects. 1609. Hudson, having anchored at Sandy Hook, sent forward 5 men in a boat, who passed through the Narrows, sounding as they went. They were attacked by 2 Indian canoes, and John Coleman, an Englishman, who had accompanied Hudson in his polar voyages, was killed. This was the first European blood that was shed in these waters. The place where he was interred is still called Coleman's Point. 1620. The Mayflower, with its company, consisting of 101 passengers, sailed from Plymouth, England, for America, having been obliged to put back twice, on account of the leaky condition of the Speedwell, which was to sail with her. This was the company of pilgrims which landed at Plymouth Rock, and commenced the settlement of New England. 1645. A general thanksgiving was ordained by Governor Kieft, to be observed through the limits of New Netherland, for the restoration of peace with the Indians, showing that this festival, which is by many asserted to be exclusively puritanical, was also observed by the Dutch occasionally. 1652. Philippe Le Gombe died, a Dutch Jesuit whose works were in high estimation. 1676. The Massachusetts forces, having subdued Philip, turned their arms against the Eastern Indians, and surprised about 400 of them at Cocheco, in Maine, who were all taken. Those found accessory to the late rebellion, being about half the number, were sold into slavery, and several who had committed murders were hung. 1678. Tongue and Oates furnished a narrative of a plot to overturn the English government. 1683. John Baptist Colbert, Marquis of Sagnelia, died. He was an illustrious French statesman, deservedly respected as a minister who ably restored the navy, the commerce and finances of the country, patronized learning and science, and invigorated genius by his mild and active generosity. 1689. Mentz, in Germany, surrendered to the imperialists. 1748. Edmund Gibson, Bishop of London, died. An eminent antiquarian, theological, political and controversial writer. 1769. Great Jubilee at Stratford, England, in honor of Shakespeare. The pageant continued 3 days, and attracted much attention. 1775. John Baptist Bullitt, a French author, died. He possessed a most retentive memory, and his works are learned and useful. 1781. Fort Griswold taken by the British under Arnold, and the garrison put to the sword. Colonel Ledyard, who commanded the fort, was run through the body with his own sword, after he had surrendered. Of the garrison, 73 were killed, 30 or 40 wounded, and 40 taken prisoners. British lost 48 killed, and 142 wounded. 1781. New London was set on fire, 60 dwellings and 84 stores burned. 1781. American privateer, Congress, captured British sloop of war Savage, 20 guns. 1783. Anna Williams, a blind English authoress, died, aged 77. 1784. George Alexander Stevens, an English writer, died. He possessed the rare faculty of entertaining an audience 4 hours at a sitting. By his lectures on heads he realized about $50,000. But died finally in a madhouse. 1796. William Benwell, an elegant English scholar, died. 1808. Louis-Pierre Anquetil du Perron, a French divine and historian, died. He traveled in Asia, where he acquired the language of the ancient Persians, and became acquainted with the original writings of Zoroaster, and brought home a large amount of the literary spoil. 1810. Battle of Rudchuk. The Russians defeated the Turks, killed the Seraskier and 5,000 men, and took an immense number of prisoners, with all their artillery and equipage. 1813. William Burroughs, a gallant naval officer of the United States, was slain in the action between the Enterprise, United States, and British ship Boxer. C. 5th. 1814. British under General Provost took Plattsburgh. 1816. Thomas Clark died in London, aged 80. He came to the city at the age of 22, and obtained the place of a porter. By the strictest economy and well-directed effort, he accumulated the fortune of $1.5 million. 1821. Vicessimus Knox died. A learned English divine and miscellaneous writer. 1839. An insurrection at Zurich, in Switzerland, in consequence of the city government having enacted a new law, enforcing a system of government independent of the clergy, and differed from the routine of the old catechism, and having called from Germany to fill the theological chair of the university, Professor Strauss, whose neological doctrines had given much offense. Several thousand peasants assembled and marched into the city headed by their pastors. A few lives were lost. The government declared itself dissolved, the peasants withdrew, and the city became tranquil. 1848. The British forces under General Wyche besieged the city of Multan, in northern India, and were forced on the 14th to withdraw with much loss. 1848. Thomas Drenner, an Irish exile, died in New York, aged 86. In 1798 he was a merchant in extensive business, joined the Patriots, and became treasurer of the United Irish Society. He was arrested for treason, and spent 4 years in prison. Ruined in fortune, and with impaired health, he came to America. For 17 years. Was occupied in the iron manufacture in Vermont, and for the last 15 years was employed in the New York Custom House. 1855. Colonel Henry L. Kinney was appointed by acclamation civil and military governor of San Juan del Norte, or Greytown, at a mass meeting of the citizens.